things, but number one is prioritizing our government spending and making sure that we are spending taxpayer dollars within our means. Under my leadership as your county executive, Putnam County government has never had to raise taxes. And in fact, in my first budget, we lowered the property tax rate to its lowest level in 15 years. And last year, we lowered the property tax rate to its lowest rate in 18 years without any increase to the tax levy. And in fact, we cut the tax levy in my first year. We also, and this is important, eliminated the sales tax on clothing and footwear under $110. So what that did was actually reduce, for the first time since I think like 1990, sales tax, making it less regressive for folks who are unfairly harmed by sales tax. And that completely zeroed it out because the state and the MTA does not charge sales tax on clothing and footwear under $110. I would actually like to see that exemption made permanent. Under our budget, we've been able to invest in our property tax stabilization fund. So not only did we able to protect taxpayers in our budget, but that allows us to plan our future finances so we can rely less on property taxes in the future. And sales tax revenue is one of the primary reasons we are able to do it. County government gets many of its revenue from property taxes. It's about $46+ million. Sales tax revenue, just about $80 million. And state and federal funding. But of all those revenue sources, sales tax is what the county has traditionally been able to leverage to help balance its budget. There are certain proposals before the legislature now that would arbitrarily cut that sales tax rate. Right now, our sales tax rate in county government is 4%. So it's 3%, which we've always had, with an additional 1% permitted by the state. The rest of the sales tax is the state sales tax and the MTA. That 4%, that is your county sales tax, is competitive with all of our neighboring New York counties. And in fact, of the 62 counties in New York State, including the 5 boroughs of New York City, 56 of them have a sales tax rate, a local sales tax rate of 4% or higher. So what may have happened 10, 15, 20 years ago when they were adjusting sales tax rates, thinking that Putnam was less competitive, is no longer the case. And in fact, if you look back in time, in 2007, when a lot of this was happening, county government property taxes increased by 19%. And in 2008, property taxes increased by 27%. And that's the tax levy, not even the tax rate. I would like to leave those times and those types of tax hikes in the past. And in fact, at my State of the County earlier this year, I announced my intention, in part by leveraging our sales tax revenue, to provide the largest property tax cut in county history in my next budget. With the discussion on sales tax, we understood there was a lot of different opinions. There's discussions about redistributing sales tax to support local governments, cutting the sales tax, making the sales tax exemption permanent. So I decided to take it right to our residents, right to our neighbors. We announced and promoted a community tax survey, and within 1 week, 822 residents responded, 72% of them saying they want a major property tax cut. You spoke, I listened. I said affordability, accountability, accessibility. That very much relies on government transparency as well. If we're going to hold ourselves accountable, we need residents to be able to have access to the information to hold those in elected office and make sure that they are true to their word. So how have we done that? As your county executive, I have held town halls and constituent forums in every town in every year in elected office. We've been live streaming all of our executive public hearings. When we pass a local law in county government, the legislature passes the law, but before I get to sign or veto it, I am required to host a public hearing. In the past, those were simply done quietly behind closed doors with minutes that maybe were filed with the legislature before it was sent up to the state to make sure it's enacted. I live stream and host all those public hearings so people can participate. We also, staying true to my word in my first term, launched a new budget transparency website. County budget's about $205 million. It's a big number. Now, if you compare it to our neighboring counties, how much we spend per person, it's significantly less because we do our best to prioritize spending and focus on core functions of county government. But all too often, people don't understand where their tax dollars are going. So having a budget transparency website will give you access to this information where you can see where your taxpayer dollars are going. Another way that we can be transparent. Hello, miss. Thank you for being here. Please take a seat.
You're going to tell us good news?
Good news. This is good news. Another thing that I like to, again, practice what we preach and lead by example. How can we be more transparent? I like to pull from my own experience. When I was a state legislator as a member of the Assembly, I was required to post all of my financial disclosure forms online. This is not a new thing. Every public officer, specifically elected officer, has to file a financial disclosure form. It's one of the things that you can find if there's a conflict of interest with your official duties, and it gets filed with the Board of Ethics. Now, this should be public information. You could FOIL it, but you have to go through a whole bureaucratic process. Things get redacted. I posted mine online. I did it for 6 years when I was in the state assembly. There is no restriction on any elected official doing it on their own, by their own volition. And I think that is one thing that every elected officer in county government can and should do on their own. Now, another new initiative that we put forward last year that I'm excited we'll be launching again this year is our youth business market. This is something I learned about at a legislative conference across the country. And I saw states like in Utah and Texas unveiling this. And why not in New York? And why not start it in Putnam County? The reality is, you may have read about this 3 or 4 years ago. Some overzealous health departments were shutting down children's lemonade stands because they didn't have the proper permitting, they weren't collecting sales tax, a bunch of nonsense. So what some states were doing, were actually working with cooperatives to open up these children's entrepreneur markets to unleash entrepreneurism within our youth. Putnam County did the exact same thing with our youth bureau and a couple of really important community partners and hosted it at our county park, Tilly Foster Farm, where children created and sold all sorts of interesting things like 3D printed items, lemonade. Well, we had one child that was actually, he developed a cheat sheet on how to solve a Rubik's Cube, something I've never been able to do in my entire life, and sold it. Really, really cool stuff. We had over 600 visitors. People came up from the city, people came from Connecticut, Orange County, Dutchess County, seeing Putnam County lead the way. The next youth business market is scheduled for Sunday, June 8th at Tilly Foster Farm. If you have any grandchildren you'd like to share, please encourage them to register. It really is an awesome time. I believe it's ages 5 to 17, right, Chris? My son is turning 5 in May, so I'm going to try to wrangle him and his friends. I don't know how much he can do other than maybe roll a pine cone and peanut butter, throw some sprinkles on it, and yarn and make a bird feeder out of it. But whatever he's going to do, well, it's going to be fun. Another big accomplishment that we announced last year that we're going to unveil probably in a week or two is the successful completion of our new state-of-the-art fire and EMS training center. When people think about county government and what is different about county, state, local, town, village government, your local agencies, your local volunteer fire departments are the ones that are responding to calls, particularly when it's a fire call or it's an emergency on one of our roadways. But also you get support from the county through advanced life support services. You get support from your volunteer ambulance corps. But it's not fair for a local town to burden all the costs for some of the training. They don't have a large-scale training facility. We don't have a town like Greenburgh in Putnam County. We're much smaller. So this is a function that the county government has taken on over the years. But the fire training center that we had next to our county park was falling into disrepair. The fire tower that firefighters were trained to go up and down has been closed for over a decade. The burn building where firefighters were trained their interior firefighting skills had to have their panels replaced, spending $50,000 to $100,000 every other year in county tax dollars. It was becoming, that classic lemon car. It's time to get a new car. So we were able to repurpose American Rescue Plan Act funding thankful to support from our partners in the federal government, members of Congress, Senator Schumer, Senator Gillibrand, who passed the American Rescue Plan Act, I think then Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney. We also got support from our state senator, Peter Harcum, who got us grant funding close to $300,000 worth to build this new $1.3 million state-of-the-art fire and EMS training center. It has been completed. We've done the walkthroughs, and it'll be in use this year. And I always try to remind folks, it is named after the late firefighter from the Brewster Volunteer Fire Department, Lieutenant Michael E. Nooner, who lost his life in the line of duty in a basement fire in the 1990s in Brewster. So this will continue to be named in his honor, and we know it will be put to good use. Very appropriate use of ARPA dollars. Another major project that's ongoing and it's more local in the town of Philipstown is the Sprout Brook Road project and bridge project. Staying true to my word, we did this in Fair Street, first Peekskill Hollow Road. I'm sure you read about it. Putnam Valley had a major construction project that was disrupted with a contractor that walked off the job. It was ripped up and largely incomplete. One of the first things I did as county executive was host a public forum. We had over 100 people show up to grill us, ask questions, so we could set expectations, get the project back on track. I'm proud that it is now complete. Other than some landscaping improvements that are needed, the project is done, the bridges are complete. We took that model and applied it to all of our other large construction projects. So we did a public forum for Fair Street in Town of Carmel. We did one also for Sprout Brook Road. We know it's going to be disruptive for our friends in Continental Village, but it needs to be done for public safety. Public health and public safety is a responsibility of every level of government, and I am hopeful to see that concluded with that project. People can find out more about updates on our DPW website, Department of Public Works. Another major accomplishment we got done from when I took office, for those who work at our Office of Senior Resources and are members of organized labor, I took office with 4 collective bargaining units. Each of them failed to have a multi-year contract or were working outside of a contract. Our PBA was out of a contract. The other 3 were operating under a 1-year rollover. Our public employees deserve to have confidence for their families and their friends to know that what they can fund and support for their future. So within just about 2 years, we were able to settle all 4 collective bargaining units with multi-year contracts, which is important not only for the employees, but also for taxpayers and for our financial future. So now it's the PBA, the CSCA, our largest union, the PUMA, which is our mid-level management union, as well as our corrections officers union. I talked about accessibility. One thing that this administration is very proud of is our ability to think differently. Does anyone here know about what the Think Differently initiative actually is? I know we have some folks that read papers from Dutchess County. It was a big initiative with Dutchess County Executive Mark Molinaro. And it's something that many local governments have passed resolutions to embrace. But passing a resolution is nice. It's a statement. There's purpose behind it. But in my experience, actions speak louder than words. When I took office, I realized the county office building, where I go to work every day, where the legislature conducts its public meetings, it lacked a handicap ramp. And if you had trouble with stairs or were in a wheelchair or on crutches, you would need to go through the back of the county building by the other courthouse, come in through the basement, get buzzed in by a police officer, hit the elevator to go all the way up to the 3rd floor. That is not a welcoming environment. So this year, we funded it. Well, last year we funded it in our capital plan, but this year we opened up a brand new handicap ramp, handicap door, ADA improvements to include a handicap bathroom, all in the county office building, which had previously lacked. We also are initiating our Think Differently initiatives with our partners in education. In Dutchess County, a lot of Think Differently initiatives are tied to helping those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Most people may not realize this, but one of the mandated functions of county government is providing special education for the pre-K community. So for ages 1 to 3, it's referred to as earlier intervention. 3 to 6, it's the Committee on Special Education for pre-K. Now, school districts are now providing universal pre-K services for more typical children. One of the issues we've had in county government over the years is because of the lack of services in the county government has been contracting with agencies to actually provide these services to special education pre-K children outside of the county. Meaning, special education children who are 3, 4, and 5 years old would have to sit on a bus to go somewhere in Westchester County or Dutchess County, sometimes upwards of 2 hours to get services. That is not a good service, nor is it fair to those children. It also costs taxpayers a heck of a lot of money by increased transportation costs. We have announced an initiative to create a new Think Differently pre-K campus with our partner at Community-Based Service in InterArts, which is in the town of Patterson, where we are bridging a opportunity with school boards and school superintendents so they can provide universal pre-K services at this facility while we provide special education pre-K services with a more inclusive environment, a better education, and cut down on transportation costs and save taxpayer monies. I can't do it alone. I can only do it with the town of Patterson on board, which they have been supportive, and the legislature and our school boards. Carmel Central School District and Brewster have been very supportive. We are absolutely engaging with the west side of the county. I know it's a little bit more of a hike to get from Patterson to here, but it's still closer than some of the other locations some of these children are being forced to go to. Another opportunity that we have that's created more for this audience within the seniors community and Office of Senior Resources, there's tons of programs in our departments. We have over 25 departments and divisions that do great work. But highlighting our Office of Senior Resources, a new program they launched earlier this year is the Senior Tech Connect program, which brings together the Youth Council, the Sheriff's Office, and the Office of Senior Resources, bridging a generational divide and having youth train and help educate some of our seniors community with technological skills to help them engage and communicate with members of our community as well as their family. Another big accomplishment I'm excited about, thanks to a grant from State Assemblyman Matt Slater, who got a $50,000 community grant to help us replace and build a new Veterans Museum. Who's been here? Who's been to the county park before? Putnam County Veterans Memorial Park. Awesome. So that is your park. I know there's always this like geographical divide between the west side of the county and the east side of the county. A lot of it's parkland, but that county park in the town of Kent is your park. I want you to use it. There's also a special discount for our seniors. I believe it's 50% off, so take advantage of it. And we cut the fees for our park employees and first responders by 50% too. But check it out. We're going to build a new Quonset hut at the heart of the lower lot. There's a beach there for children, lots of programming. This new Veterans Museum is going to be a testament to our veterans, but also helps promote some of our county's history. Some of the other more private sector accomplishments that have been happening within the county government. I mentioned Ascendico as the first location for our State of the County. Ascendico has now become our largest private sector employer. That commercial tax base is important because it allows the county and the town of Southeast to rely less on homeowners for property taxes. They also employ people and help contribute to our local economy. They just finished a multi-million-dollar, 60,000 square foot expansion of their facility. You may have seen, if anyone that commutes down to the city, you may have seen those huge Ascendico trucks down on 684. Magazzino, more in the town of Philipstown, nonprofit, finished a major expansion that will help bolster tourism and a lot of activity within the community. Over more central in the county towards Carmel and Southeast, Lesser Evil Popcorn. Interesting name, right? Lesser Evil. It's a healthy snack popcorn company. They have become a new tenant at a distribution hub that was built off Pugsley Road, not far from Tilly Foster Farm, which is a nice, exciting project, as well as Brewster Yard, which is a youth outdoor and indoor recreational facility for baseball off of 84. Another major issue that we've been talking about is the future of farming. You may have read about it in your local papers. You may have heard about debates that are ongoing within the legislature. I committed to the people of Putnam County that I would host a roundtable, which I held about a week or so ago in the town of Putnam Valley. We had members from the Grange there. We had Cornell Cooperative Extension, members that are current members and former members of the Agricultural Advisory Board present. We had representatives from the planning departments from Westchester County, Dutchess County, the county planning department, to listen to all stakeholders about policies and procedures within our agricultural district, ag exemptions, and some of the things that are already financed and supported from county government through Cornell Cooperative to support farming and agriculture in Putnam County. We made it clear that there's opportunities to update these rules moving forward. There's a window where the applications to be in the ag district are revisited every 8 years. That's coming in 2027. So if we're going to update these standards, we really need to do it before we get into 2027. More work to do, but lots of opportunity. And as I get towards the end of this, one of the other big things we're excited to accomplish and celebrate next year is the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. As part of New York State and one of the original 13 colonies, rich in historical sites that are tied to the American Revolution. I'm really excited about this. We not only have the legend of Sybil Ludington, which is not so much tied to Philipstown, but the history with the Hudson River connected to West Point and Constitution Island, which is why I'm very excited that we have 2 volunteer co-chairs to lead up this committee to launch a large array of events and activities to promote the American Revolution, led by none other than former Governor, the Honorable George Pataki, Philipstown resident, Garrison resident too, I believe, and George Whipple. I know we're going to have some exhibits later this year at the county fair at our Putnam County Veterans Memorial Park, which will include some reenactors, and you can learn more at putnamcountyny.gov/rev250. I've already gone through a lot. I shared that we have 27 departments, close to 700 county employees. I cannot go on and on. I could give an hour-long presentation. I'm not doing that. I'm going to promise you I'm wrapping this up. But the reality is, this administration puts more on our county website for the public to digest and read on their own than any other in county history. All of the annual reports that our county departments are mandated to submit as part of the state of the county are put online. No other county executive has done that. So you can read them yourself. The same reports that are required of our nonprofits that are supported by county government, same thing. It's on our county website, putnamcountyny.gov. You can go read yourself to learn about what county government is doing to help you and your neighbors. But the reality is, there are people with different ideas, views, and backgrounds, and they have always had an opportunity to work together to achieve common goals. Today, you've heard some of the successes and goals of my administration, but none of them would be possible without your support and the support of our partners in county government and town government. I believe that we can still pass the largest property tax cut in county history, lower the cost of living for everyone, care for and support our most vulnerable residents, and build on our victories to invite a better, more prosperous tomorrow. There is only one Putnam, one New York, and one America. Let us then continue this important work together. Thank you, and with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. First, how did I do? I stay under 30 minutes?
No.
If I went over 30 minutes, I am sorry, folks. I swear I tried to keep this a little less. We keep with the microphone first because I didn't know how this was our first time doing this with this setup. Didn't know how it was going to work with the acoustics, audience participation. But at the same time, we also want it picked up on the camera, so for the live stream and for it to be on the website in case anybody else wants to watch later on. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you may have or comments. Yes, sir. Just do me a favor, say your name and where you're from.
I'm Joe Meyer from here in Cold Spring. Thank you for a very comprehensive presentation. As just a newspaper reader, I'm not involved in any of the activities of the county, the level you are. I read a very contentious atmosphere in the county legislature, and I read some disturbing practices that, I'm not talking about partisan, but personal practices, preventing information from being shared, committees from being open. And I know you're not the legislature, you're the executive, but as a citizen, I would be much happier if I felt that my legislature was open to a debate that was free and transparent. How can you and how can we as citizens improve that?
So, very astute of you, sir. So, what I will share is when I first took office, in my first day of the county, I launched several initiatives. One of them was I proposed actual legislation to the legislature called the Taxpayer Transparency Act, which would do a series of things. Some of them we've been able to accomplish, like the budget transparency website. We did that through the budget process. But also, it would have codified live streaming of public meetings. The legislature failed to act on it. Not because some didn't support it, but the leadership of the legislature at the time refused to put it on the agenda. I was very pleased. There were some changes to the legislative manual, which basically is their governing document, not like the charter as a matter of law, but it's more like their Robert's rules, right? It governs their meetings. Sometimes they try to control the executive branch with that, they can't. It governs them, which makes sense. There were some controversial changes they made, and they've been discussing them earlier this year. Some of them they put on pause, some of them are good. But in a February meeting, one of the legislators actually suggested that they were going to revisit them, and that he was the chair of the Rules Committee, Legislator Birmingham from Southeast, would support live streaming of legislative meetings. Then at the Rules Committee meeting later in March, they passed out of committee a proposal by Legislator Crowley, which was supported by your Legislator Montgomery, to codify not only live streaming, but public comment in committees as a part of the legislative manual. Now that's not county code, but I think that was good. It's something to protect it from a future body that might want to change it. And it's much harder to undo something once it's done. I always say things are permanent in politics so far as politicians are permanent. Nothing is really permanent, but it's hard to undo. At my State of the County on March 3rd at Ascendico, I thanked the legislature, recognized them for doing it, not as county executive, because it's not the executive, I can't change their legislative manual, but as a resident of Carmel or Putnam County, a lifelong resident of this county, I thanked them. The next day, at the full meeting, they pulled that rules change from the agenda. And I've since talked about it, and I've done nothing. I don't know why. Public pressure does do a lot. I think it's a good idea to codify public comment opportunities in committee. I think there's a good discussion that can be had about, does the legislature need to have it at the full before or after agenda items? I think there's multiple arguments that can be shared on that, and that's for the legislature to discuss. But the reality is, I thought it was a good thing, because I have seen committee chairs ask for the public, hey, would you like the public comment on this agenda item? And then I've seen them, when it's a long day, just rush right through it and not ask. And if you're a resident that goes to a meeting for the first time, you don't know when you're allowed to speak. And then they'll think, oh, no, it's too late. You missed your opportunity. That's not how I do things. So I try to lead by example. I told the legislature I supported live streaming of public meetings in 2023. So in 2024, when I realized that wasn't happening, I started live streaming my own public hearings. I did it before the legislature did it. And now they're doing it. And I'm grateful that they're live streaming their meetings. So sometimes progress is incremental.
Thank you for your answer.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Barry. I live in Cold Spring. Matter of fact, I live on Fair Street. One of the things I'm asking about is revenue sharing and sales tax. Kathleen didn't put me up to it, but we need money in the town of Cold Spring over here. My wife and I took a walk downtown yesterday. She almost tripped on the sidewalk going down, because the sidewalk leads to repair. She tried walking in the street, there's potholes in the street. So,
Especially in the snow, really.
but we're coming up to open season on the tourists coming to Cold Spring. We're going to need help with that also. I live on Fair Street. The traffic is unbelievable. I have trouble getting out of my driveway sometimes. There's things we need from the county that we really can't provide for the village.
So the question is about sales tax sharing, redistribution of the county sales tax funding to support town and village governments. This has been discussed for many years. It's not a new issue, but the interesting change over the last 4 years is a U.S. Supreme Court case that has allowed states, and by extension, county government, to apply sales tax to online purchases. So I bring this up because it has created a generation of new revenue to the state and counties that it had not received previously. And it's very significant. It was almost $10 million, in my opinion. And that was because in the past, it was seen as an issue with interstate commerce, and it was seen as an issue for the U.S. Congress to address. U.S. Supreme Court did it. I'm just giving that for historical context. That's a recent development over the last 5 years. The county has been using its 3% sales tax to fund its county government and operations since the 1970s, when it took over the Medicaid program by the state. And the 1% extension that got us that 4% sales tax, that has been the case really since late 2000s, 2008, 9. So I bring that up because our county budget, our county programs, our union contracts, they have been financed and contracted based on what we can afford as a county government. I have always said that we should leverage sales tax revenue to control property taxes. And my position has long been, I would rather make sure I can keep more of it in your pocket by cutting your property taxes on the county side than giving it to another government that might spend it unwisely. Not that Mayor Foley would do that, but I lose any control or ability to do that. What I have said is alternatively, because of the additional revenue the county has gotten, the prior administration on their way out the door tried to do this share the growth model. That model is something I very much oppose because I think it undermines our ability to conservatively budget and forecast sales tax revenue and could create a potential shortfall, perhaps unintentionally, but could do that in the future. I have proposed a grant program as an alternative to help support local governments, towns, villages with specific projects so they would be more targeted. That was cut by the legislature, and we cut taxes. I'm happy to cut taxes. There is a very important meeting this evening from the legislature that has multiple proposals before it to extend the sales tax rate so it stays 4%. That 1% extra accounts for about $22 million. You take away that $22 million, the county government is instant shortfall over $10 million for a county budget. Can't do it. So now they're trying to cut it 0.25%. What I will tell you is this. The supervisors and mayors have already asked to meet with me later this week, and I have said I will absolutely meet with them because I don't know what the legislature is going to do. For the first time, they're trying to cut that sales tax rate. By now, it was 0.5%, 0.25%. But going down 0.25% really equates to like a 6.5% cut to the total rate, and still equals almost $6 million. So that would be, in my mind, a big mistake, and would force us inevitably to draw down from the county savings account, and then inevitably in the future rely more on property taxes. If I can come up with, if the legislature truly does cut the sales tax rate, and they do it with only 5 votes, I will entertain vetoing that because they need 6 votes to override. So long as I can come up with a compromise with towns and villages that will cost the county government less and keep that money in Putnam County, because sales tax is generated not only by residents, but non-residents too. And if we can use that money and keep it in the county, I'm not talking about county government, but in the confines of this county, so we can support specific services, I think there's a will to do it. I will keep an open mind. I'm going to meet with them later this week. But part of it is, I don't know what the legislature is going to do later this evening. That's a big question. I think cutting that rate is a big mistake. If you want to cut sales tax, you do it by doing that exemption, by making it less regressive. So the people that are disproportionately harmed by sales tax actually get that meaningful relief. And we've already done it.
What happened on Fair Street? Is the Fair Street question?
Can we, well,
Answer his Fair Street question?
well, yeah, I talked about the sales tax sharing in general. Oh, can you answer his Fair Street question?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Do
you want
to
the-
that so that streams?
Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I don't know everybody in the room, but I'm Kathleen Foley. I'm the mayor in the village, and I wanted to let you know what's going on with Fair Street. Fair Street was deeply damaged during the July 2023 storm. There is a culvert that has failed. It's a 30-inch culvert that takes all of the stormwater from Main Street north, with the exception of Undercliff, which goes surface down to the same marsh where this water discharges. We have been working with FEMA. I've met with FEMA for every 2 weeks for 2 years. We've gone out to bid on the project, and the work will start to upsize that culvert should be by the end of May. So we'll be working on it through the summer. It's going to be a really hard time, and here's why. The trailheads are also closing. The trailheads and the Breakneck train station are closing as part of the Fjord Trail project, the beginning of the Fjord Trail project. So you can expect that people coming by train to hike are going to be coming through the village. And how do they get to the village right now? Get to the trails right now over Fair Street. So we're going to have an active construction project and increased crowds. We will be closing down one lane. This is the likely plan. We'll be closing down one lane, and it will be one-way traffic from Main Street all the way out to 9D. We're working with the county DPW to extend the pedestrian walkway on Fair Street in one lane to keep walkers safe and people safe, to keep cars in line. It is not going to be easy, but we're going to do it, and I'm grateful to the DPW for assisting us in that effort. As part of that project, the sidewalk from Riverview all the way to the tidal pool, the end of Mayor's Park, there will be a new sidewalk installed. The parking will be realigned so that people walk behind the parked cars, in between the parked cars and the park, rather than along the roadway. So there are improvements coming. It's just been a really long road, and it's really expensive. It's $1.5 million project. Our overall budget is about $3.8 million. We have had to work in 2 bond payments this cycle for our dam. We're finally moving forward on dam repairs and on this Fair Street project. To the other question of potholes, we have a chunk of CHIPS money, which is state money toward CHIPS is broad. There are a few categories of funding in there that go toward local funding. It hasn't been used in a very long time, so we have a chunk of money. Starting at spring break, we will be paving Benedict when you come out of Foodtown. Everybody's has complained for so long about falling into that Volkswagen-sized hole. So that will get paved. The end of Lund Terrace from Main Street, for about 250 feet back, will be paved. Up around the school, Cedar Street Spur will finally have a road surface. And the intersection at Mountain and Locust Ridge, where all of the crosswalks are to get into that side of the school, will be paved and the crosswalks reset. So there's work coming. Thank you for being patient. And I feel like come the end of the summer, we're going to be in a much better place on an infrastructure way. But in terms of managing tourism, we very much appreciate sales tax sharing. I will say that this administration has been immensely supportive of. Mayor Windward is here with me, the deputy supervisor is here. We work really well together, and that hasn't happened before, ever, maybe. But it's working now, and Kevin has been an excellent partner in helping us pressure to bring some of the tax dollars that we generate here back here. So it's in progress. If anybody's able to come to Carmel tonight, I'm happy to give people a ride. Public pressure is really important, even if you're just sitting in the room and making eye contact with the legislators, to let them know that you're the folks who are impacted by their decisions. Unfortunately, it is the very last item on the agenda, so it will be a long night. I think the farm question is also on the agenda tonight, so if you're up for a late night at the county courthouse, want to ride, let me know.
It's a live stream.
Thank you. It will be live streamed, right?
It
Should be.
Yes. Yeah.
We'll see.
So,
Thank you.
and like I like to show other municipal leaders, not necessarily people in this room, that it is doable to live stream in remote locations. I think that camera's cost less than $200, maybe $200. The legislature I think spent $60,000 on their live streaming thing. So, but you can do it. You can do it. And the one just to dovetail on it, if there's a cut in the sales tax rate and a loss of revenue, it kind of kisses any other opportunity goodbye. We're very fortunate. We have a very healthy general fund balance that needs to be audited, and then it gets accounts that were used to fund our budget get replenished. But the reality is you can only spend that down for a certain amount of time. Inevitably, if the plan is, let's just rely on that, you're eventually going to spend your savings account down and you're going to get slapped with a property tax hike in the years ahead. So the sales tax rate is very important. And for those that have told me, well, Kevin, if we cut the rate, maybe we'll get some more business from Danbury. I know that may not be an issue over here. I'm sorry for my awful impersonation there. I don't even know who I'm impersonating. But the reality is, if you cut a 8.375 rate by 0.25, you're still over 8%. And Danbury's rate is 6%. No one is going to change their purchasing behavior across state lines. Now, if you look at Westchester and Rockland, they have an identical rate as ours. If you look at Orange and Dutchess, the rate, yes, is 0.25% less, but they also have a county-wide occupancy rate of 5%, which is one of the highest rates in the state. So it's really, we're in a very competitive place. Taking away that revenue would kind of kiss goodbye opportunities to do more partnerships with local government. Yes, miss?
Okay, I'm trying to sort out a number of things you just said. Okay.
Sorry. A lot of numbers.
You did cut, at the beginning, you did cut the sales
Property.
tax and property tax.
Yes, with an exemption for sales tax, yes. So cutting the sales tax rate, we didn't cut the sales tax rate in the beginning. What we did was we opted into a special exemption that the state provides, which zeroes out county sales tax on clothing and footwear under $110. So that's a much more mild way to lower sales tax revenue, but it's in a way that provides more meaningful relief, and it costs us about $2 million. So we could manage that, but losing $6 million by cutting the overall rate creates a bigger financial challenge.
Okay, but cutting the property tax that does reduce revenue.
Yes.
So you talked earlier about having some extra revenue from online sales tax.
Yes.
Where else might you have revenue, or what other things then, perhaps you mentioned the grants that were sacrificed in the budget in favor of, it sounded like, the tax cut. So where is additional revenue, or what program sacrificed in order to afford the budget that has tax cuts?
So the first time we actually cut the property tax levy was the 2024 budget. The legislature cut a new program that I put in as an alternative to support local governments. They cut that, and then they cut the levy. I had tried to provide an alternative that was more targeted, because the year prior, ironically, many of the same legislators spent a much larger number on ARPA and general fund balance to support towns, and abruptly they had a change of heart. The reason that we can cut that property tax levy and continue to drive down that rate is because two things. One is it's spending. Anyone who talks about taxes and not spending, I'm really not being honest with you. You can control spending by prioritizing your spending. You can't say yes to everybody. You got to say no. If it's meeting a core function of county government, public health and safety, it's meeting our mission. That's how I drill down and we prioritize our spending. But we've been able to leverage new revenues because of online sales. And here's another little dirty secret a lot of politicians won't tell you. That thing that is hurting a lot of us across the country called inflation, it also increases sales tax revenue, so long as we're not in a recession, right? So the more that the consumer pays they're also paying more in sales tax. So that creates more revenue that allows us to rely less on property taxes.
It's the same people paying both ultimately.
It is. But sales tax revenue is residents and non-residents, and I largely prefer that to property taxes. But that is not to say that we don't acknowledge sales tax still aggressive, which is why we did the exemption, which I thought made it fairer and provided some relief, but in a way that didn't have a major fiscal hit.
Okay.
Other questions? I've spoken a long time. We have Robin, we got food coming out soon, later?
Yeah, half an hour.
Oh, 30 minutes. So I'm not keeping them in between their meal. Okay, so I'm not keeping them in the way of bingo either, right?
No.
Okay.
Well, while we're on the subject of lunch,
So for the folks that may follow this, while we're on the subject of lunch, is how this thing up. Yes, sir.
Now you're in trouble.
recently there's been change of the menu for the senior center here. One example is the juice. We get the juice that we get is I guess V8. These have a combination of juices. We could choose a juice that we wanted to drink. Now we only get V8. There's no choice. I questioned the people that run the menu and said, don't drink it if you don't want it. That's it. You don't have a choice. No freedom of choice. No one's drinking it. They're throwing it out. Waste. You drink it, but no one. No.
I will have to research that more and get back to you. But what I will say is, I want you to be as healthy as possible, sir. I want you to live a long, prosperous, healthy life.
Tomato-filled life.
I just saw Bobby Kennedy was going to stop food stamps being used for purchased soda. I think that's a good idea. Can't buy soda, sugary drinks. I don't drink soda anymore. But anyway, other questions? I'll look. Have fun. I'm happy to embarrass myself and play some of you in pool later. But thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed this. And again, check out our county website. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.